let's recall how indebted we are to other sentient beings, how interrelated we are with them, how our very life depends on them. And when we really see that all we know, all we have, everything we can do depends on the efforts and kindness of others, then when we really feel that deeply, then it becomes intolerable to be angry at them or jealous of them or conceited, because we realize that, all there is kindness from their side, and our afflictions don't match that kindness, don't repay that kindness. So let's continue to train our mind to see the kindness of others, even if their kindness isn't meant personally for us. Still, the fact that they do what they do means that we benefit from them, and therefore they're kind. And so to do our Dharma practice with the motivation to repay that kindness by purifying our mind, gaining realizations, so that we can lead others to awakening. True, isn't it, that when our minds are only thinking about me, then we can grumble about everyone and anything. And yet when we just broaden the perspective of our mind, we see, that we're surrounded by kindness and how indebted we are to other living beings. And then really just the idea of, putting them down because we're arrogant, or wishing they are not happy because we're jealous of them, or being angry and irritated at them. It just seems so completely uncouth, doesn't it? So out of place when we consider, like the building we're sitting in, that's protecting us from the snow and the hail today, is all constructed by sentient beings. Yeah. Our lunch, all came through the efforts, will come through the efforts of sentient beings. So when we really think about this, then, we're just kind of living on the waves of sentient beings' generosity. It's true, isn't it? We usually just think, me, I don't have what I want more, the world's unfair to me. But that perspective is so out of whack, it's so unrealistic compared to the reality of the situation we live in. Try and get our mind a little bit more in tune with reality. It'll make us happier, don't you think? When you meditated on and we'll continue with the four, attributes of each of the four noble truths. But when you meditate like on impermanence or dukkha or whatever, we just see that the more our mind rejects those attributes and says it shouldn't be like this, then the more painful our mind is. So similarly, the more we reject the kindness of others and say the world should center around me, then again, the more unhappier we are. You know? So we're the ones who lose out primarily from our self-centered attitude. Yeah? I don't know about you, but when I was brought up as a kid, it was like, don't be selfish, you harm others. Yeah, and that's really true, and I saw that as a kid. But I'm actually the one who suffers more when I'm selfish. Yeah, when you really look at it, it's so true. No? Because that self-centered attitude makes us create negative karma. We experience the results of our own negative karma, not anybody else. And when we act obnoxiously, we're the ones who feel bad about ourselves. Yeah. So, for the benefit of others and for our own self, to diminish the self-grasping and self-centeredness. Makes a lot of sense. Don't you think? But I want someone to eliminate it for me. It's too hard to work on my self-centeredness. It's too hard to realize emptiness. Why haven't they invented a pill yet? That will do it for me. Yeah. Okay. We can cry all we want, but there's no pill. Okay. So now the 16 attributes of the Four Truths according to the Pali tradition. Okay. So the Patisambhidhammaga, is a work ascribed to Shariputra in the Sutta Pitaka. So it's in the Pali Canon itself. Explains the 16 attributes of the Four Truths. Okay, so the 4 attributes of true dukkha. Okay, so the 5 aggregates as well as all conditioned phenomena, our home, friends, possessions, reputation, and so forth, are included in true dukkha. Here, conditioned phenomena refers to things under the influence of ignorance and kama. Okay, so it doesn't, here, conditioned phenomena doesn't refer to purified things that are impermanent but purified, such as the Buddha's mind or the true path. Yeah. The true attribute of true dukkha is its being oppressive. That's a great word, isn't it? Oppressive. Pressed down, suffocating, smashed, The other 3 attributes demonstrate the way in which the aggregates and other conditioned phenomena are oppressive, stifling, and burdensome. Okay? So, first one's about oppressive, and then the other ones show how the aggregates are oppressive. So the first, the aggregates are oppressive. There it is. Dukkha has the meaning of oppression by rising and passing away. Okay. So given that each of the 5 aggregates degenerates, not enduring a second moment, they are unsatisfactory in nature. Okay. Wherever we are born in the realms of samsara, from the highest deva realm to the lowest hell, ordinary beings are oppressed by samsaric existence, the aggregates and the environment. Okay? So here right away, impermanence is getting linked with unsatisfactory. Okay? So since all the conditioned phenomena that arise under the influence of ignorance and karma, all of those, because they're changing moment by moment, they are unsatisfactory. In other words, we want some lasting, secure peace, and with our attachment, to external objects, and especially those of us in the desire realm who are just, we're so addicted to external objects. We're seeking happiness from things outside of ourselves that whose very nature is not enduring in the second moment. So how can things that don't endure in the second moment bring us lasting happiness? Yeah, even if they give us a little bit of pleasure right now, in the next moment, they're degenerating. They're changing. The situation is different. How can that thing bring us lasting happiness? Mm-hmm. And just in general, how can something under the influence of afflictions and karma bring us any kind of true happiness? Yeah. Especially when we take refuge in other people. Yeah. When we take refuge in other people whose minds are overwhelmed by afflictions and karma, then what we have is two people attached to each other, and you have afflictions and karma squared. Is that going to produce anything good? You have two beings under the influence of afflictions, trying to get happiness from each other. Is that ever going to work? Yeah? Forget it. And yet, that's what we do, isn't it? I just have to find the right person to fall in love with. And then that person forever and ever, will live happily ever after. Who wrote those stupid fairy tales anyway? Why did we all grow up with those fairy tales? They're so damaging to our mind, aren't they? They put all sorts of wrong expectations and false ideas into the minds of children. Yeah, not all fairy tales. Well, there's the wolf.
I will share tomorrow another story of a fairy tale that can be used in a very good way.
Okay.
It has been used, at least in my mind.
Okay, so we'll wait for the BBC tomorrow. But the fairy tales I heard as a child. This whole Cinderella bit? That nobody appreciates me, and then finally somebody's going to appreciate me over the top. That did so much harm to my innocent, afflicted mind. My mind bought into that stupidagio. Yeah? Okay, 2. I'm just thinking of a series of BBC talks on fairy tales. It would be very interesting, huh? To really look at those things that we were taught as children from a Dharma perspective. Okay. So 2, the aggregates are conditioned. The need to create the causes for a fortunate rebirth is one aspect of oppression. Okay. To be born as a Brahma world Deva, we must create the cause by attaining jhana, the meditative stabilizations as a human being, which is not easy. Generosity and ethical conduct are the causes to be born as a desire realm Deva. When we practice these two with the aspiration for liberation, the challenges are not experienced as overly burdensome. But when our aim is a fortunate rebirth, the same practices become drudgery because they bring only another samsaric rebirth. Yeah. So if our aim is a samsaric rebirth only, then creating the causes, it's oppressive. Oh, I got to be generous. Oh, I got to keep ethical conduct. Oh, I can't get angry. When we're doing those same things for liberation, the mind's quite joyful. Yeah. So that's why it's always important, keep our motivation and our dedication at the highest goal for pure enlightenment. When we do that, then the actions are not exhausted until then. The happiness in samsara comes on the way as a good byproduct. But, we stay focused on what's important. And so we motivate and dedicate with the highest intention. Yeah. Otherwise, like, I'm going to offer this chocolate so that in my next life I can have as much chocolate as I ever need. Already my blood pressure, my arteries are clogged thinking about it. Yeah. So beings are born in unfortunate realms due to the 10 non-virtues. Acting unwholesomely brings little pleasure now, and we are usually plagued by guilt afterwards. Aren't we? Guilt or remorse. Furthermore, in that very life, we experience others' reactions to the harm we inflict. Okay, so this is what I was saying at the beginning. When we harm others, we create the negative karma that throws us in the lower realms. And when we harm others, it's not like they come back to us and say, "Oh, I love you so much." They come and retaliate, and then we experience more pain. Yeah. So, doesn't pay. The aggregates are burning like fire. The aggregates of the unfortunate realms burn with misery, with little, if any, moments of respite. Okay, so that's certainly true in the hellish realms, certainly true in the hungry ghost realms. Now, you might look at our kitties and say, actually, how are they burning with misery? They just sleep all day and play and hiss at each other. Okay. How are they, burning with misery and plagued by suffering? Yeah. When you look in their eyes, you can see there's a consciousness that is obscured. Yeah. You can see by the look in their eyes the inability to understand things deeply. Yeah, the mind completely obscured. Now, similarly, you look in the eyes of horses or parrots or dogs, Mind is obscured. And an obscured mind, remember we talked about the dukkha of pervasive conditioning, just having the aggregates under the influence of karma and afflictions, well, that's the obscured mind. Yeah? And so, it may not be physical pain, but remember, dukkha is not limited to physical pain. The worst dukkha is the dukkha of pervasive conditioning, the one that we don't recognize so easily. Yeah. And so our kiddies, love them as we do, they're in this situation where very difficult for them to create any virtue. Yeah? That's why we insist that they come to teachings, because at least there they hear the Dharma, there's some good imprint. Yeah? But aside from that, very difficult. Okay? So those aggregates, the aggregates of an animal, are oppressive. They limit your ability, especially the mental aggregates, which depend on the physical aggregate, limit the ability to understand and have, an intelligence that can grasp the Dharma. Yeah, so that's why, one of the reasons why we're incredibly fortunate as human beings. Yeah, why we should never put ourselves down and say, I'm stupid, I can't understand, because that's not true. Okay, even if we have a favorable rebirth, we are constantly plagued by dissatisfaction. Brahma world devas suffer from the conceit, I am. I love that phrase, the conceit, I am. That just so typifies the self-grasping, I am. Well, no, you aren't. I am. I mean, there's this toughness about it, isn't there? Okay, so Brahma world devas suffer from the conceit, I am, wrong views, and other afflictions. Desire realm devas burn with passion, self-centeredness, and clinging. Human beings are oppressed by the intensity of their afflictions. Yeah, especially those of us who are emotional addicts. My inner emotional life is so important. My feelings are this. My feelings are that. My feelings are all-consuming, and the world centers around what I feel. Doesn't it? Yeah? We're oppressed by the intensity of my afflictions. Oh, my little finger hurts. It got pricked by a thorn. Oh! Oh, somebody didn't say good morning to me. Ah! Human beings are oppressed by the intensity of their afflictions. Just to stay alive, we have to work hard, and even then never feel secure. That is certainly true, isn't it? Yeah? We live in a wealthy country, and, even the poor people in this country, in general, not all of them, but in general, have it better than the people in many other countries in the world. But no matter how much we have, we never feel secure. We never have enough. We could always use a little bit more. So I mean, like all these people who got who are so wealthy. Yeah, the 1%. Yeah, why? They never feel secure. And it's hard. I mean, some of them are very dedicated to being philanthropic, and it's really, praiseworthy. But others of them, have a hard time parting with their wealth. Working sets the stage for engaging in the 10 non-virtues. Our possessions break or are stolen. Our body falls ill. We long to be loved, appreciated, and respected, but these are never commensurate to what we do to earn them. Animals suffer from being eaten by other animals or by human beings. They cannot speak up for themselves when hunted, exterminated, or abused. Hungry ghosts suffer from hunger, thirst, and frustration. Hell beings are tortured by physical pain. For those in unfavorable rebirth, even little temporal happiness, let alone Dharma happiness, is difficult to find. So this is the situation of samsara, And what makes it so difficult for us to realize this is because the appearance of this life is so powerful that it's hard to imagine that we ever have been or will be anybody other than who we are now. Yeah. It's even hard to imagine that we've been babies. It's even hard to imagine that we might live to be 90 and have dementia. Yeah. Both of those, a baby's mind, an elderly demented mind, seem impossible according to us now. And yet we know that's true. So what about lower realms, and other rebirths? It's just what blocks our understanding it is just the appearance of this life being so strong, and our grasping at the inherent existence, how things appear. Okay, so that's why doing these meditations repeatedly is really important. Yeah? So, because we have to really, it's not easy to overpower the ignorance. We need to really reformat the hard disk. Yeah? And we do that. There's no program to install that does it for us. We do it through our meditation practice, reflecting on these things again and again. Okay, then 4, the aggregates are in the nature of change. Having to die and be reborn repeatedly is wretched for all sentient beings. Yeah, certainly nobody says, oh goody, I get to die. Yeah. Those in fortunate realms leave their comfortable circumstances and are reborn in realms with more suffering, while beings in unfortunate realms face enormous difficulties in creating the cause for fortunate rebirth. Just having a samsaric body ensures loss, death, and more rebirth. Doesn't it? Just having this body. Yeah, pre-programmed. Yeah, unless we do something really powerful with our mind in this life, loss, death, and rebirth are guaranteed. All conditioned things are subject to change. Nothing remains a second moment after it arises. With deep mindfulness, it is possible to see with wisdom this rapid change occurring. When we do, it almost seems as if nothing is there, because whatever arises is gone in the next moment. Okay, that moment of the present, how ephemeral, it is. Our aggregates, environments, and enjoyments are burdensome because initially we must exert great energy to create the causes to attain them. When we have them, we burn with the afflictions they provoke. We want more, we want better, we're afraid of losing them, we're angry at whoever takes them. And at the end, even though we've created so many afflictions to get them and to protect them, at the end, we must separate from them amid confusion and uncertainty. Yeah? So every possession we have to separate from, including our body, including our loved ones. Yeah? Somebody can promise up, down, and across, I will never leave you. But that's a false promise because one or the other of us has to die. Through deeply contemplating these four attributes of true dukkha, a strong urge to be free from samsara arises within us. That strong urge, that urgency, samvega, or we call it renunciation. Yeah. And when that renunciation is strong in our mind, we have so much purpose and focus in our life, and we don't get so easily sidetracked and distracted by things that don't make much sense, because most of our distractions are just, things that are meaningless at the end of the day. So we don't bother to put physical or mental energy into them. Yeah, and we stay focused on our Dharma practice. And this is very different from pushing. Okay? The mind that pushes, I should practice Dharma more. I'm totally freaked out about the lower realms. I've got to earn more merit. Those kind of attitudes with shoulds and panics and stuff like that, that leads to pushing ourselves. Yeah. Okay. If I only had more compassion, I would meditate all night. If I only had more renunciation, I would push through this. Push. Now there's sometimes when we need to nudge ourselves because otherwise we're just plain old too lazy and self-indulgent. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about this way of pushing ourselves, like where there's tension. Yeah, do you know what I'm talking about? There's tension. Yeah, am I keeping my precepts well enough? Am I gonna go get a good rebirth? Does the community approve of me? And we approach everything with this incredible anxiety and tension. Yeah. So that is not the outcome of correct meditation on true dukkha. Okay. That's the outcome of pushing ourselves with unrealistic expectations, our usual thing that we do. The renunciation brings about a very different state of mind. Yeah, it's not tense, it's not neurotic, it's not anxious, it's not fearful. Yeah, it's focused. And it's happy to go in the direction that it knows will bring benefit. Okay? So we have to check our minds and see, are our minds focused with some sense of, okay, I'm not there yet, but I'm satisfied because I'm going in a good direction. I'm making progress. Yeah. Does our mind feel like that? Or is our mind always, oh dear, I I don't know. I had a negative thought. I'm going to go to hell. This is terrible. I've got to attain nirvana as soon as possible. You know, I've got to do this. I've got to do that. I'm so lazy. Beat, beat, beat. You know, if I weren't so lazy, I would practice more. If I weren't so selfish, I would keep my precepts better. I'm so horrible, and I'm going to hell. So push, push, push. Okay, so check and see where your mind is at. Is it pushing? Or, since we're extremists, we go to the other thing. Well, she said not to push. So, you know, I think I'll sleep in today. And, you know, my precepts, she said not to push, so a lot of them are minor. It doesn't really matter. Yeah, she said not to push. Where's my sci-fi novel? Yeah, haven't picked that up in a while. Yeah, maybe I should go online and see what all my friends are doing on Facebook. That'll relax me. Yeah. So, are you extremist? Most of us are extremists. We're either here or we're there. Yeah? What we want to generate is this, you know, sense of purpose in our life, knowing where we're going, being satisfied that we're making progress towards it. Being a happy Dharma practitioner. Okay, then the 4 attributes of true origin. True origin is responsible for the arising and growth of dukkha. The chief troublemaker, craving, is of 3 types. Okay, so first one is craving for sensual objects. Gee, haven't we come across this somewhere before? Okay, so it desires the 6 sense objects and the pleasant feelings that arise due to contact with them. It leads to involvement in non-virtuous actions to procure and protect what we desire. Okay, so this isn't just, you know, the attachment when we see an object. It's the mind daydreaming. I want it. What can I do to get it? Oh, how good I'll feel when I have it. Okay. Then the second is craving for existence. And this craves for the bliss of the material and immaterial realms and seeks rebirth there. So this is the mind that wants to exist, that is afraid of emptiness. Okay? Remember in Precious Garland, we talked about people who fear emptiness because they're afraid that they will cease to exist. So this is the craving that they fall back on, or the craving that prevents them from being open even to hearing about emptiness, because this craving to exist is so strong. I've got to have a body. I've got to have a personality. I have to keep existing. You know, that inherently existent self, you know, has to perpetuate itself. Or the grasping at an inherently existent self has to perpetuate itself. Okay, so it causes someone to be content with attaining the jhanas and not cultivate the wisdom bringing liberation. Yeah. Then craving for non-existence believes the cessation of the self at death is peaceful and sublime and craves for this. So you see our extremist views? Either I am going to continue to exist in all of samsara forever and ever, so don't tell me anything about selflessness. Or I'm going to cease to exist and there's nothingness. And that's peaceful. Okay? I can watch in my own spiritual history these two, even on the level of conceptual things. I have a soul that's going to go on, then throw that out. I don't believe that anymore. After death, there's nothing. Okay? So both of these kinds of cravings are based on ignorance. In a mild form, the craving for non-existence craves the cessation of whatever we do not like. So that one we know very well, don't we? I don't like this. I don't like that. I want this to be different. Yeah. My stomach hurts. It shouldn't hurt. These people don't smile at me. They shouldn't smile at me. Ignorance and craving work in tandem. Ignorance is the first link beginning a set of dependent arising. Craving is the active factor creating karma for a new existence. Okay? So, those three kinds of cravings. It also ripens the karma at the time of death. Because, when we're dying, then we're craving for a new existence. Yeah? Both ignorance and craving have no discernible beginning. They were not created by a supreme being, nor did they arise without causes. They are conditioned events that arise due to our having ignorance and craving in previous lifetimes. Okay, so there's no first cause for ignorance and craving. Yeah, there's no external creator who made us ignorant. There's nothing that external that caused it. It's just, one moment of ignorance is the result of the previous moment of ignorance, which comes from the previous moment. And this goes back infinitely. Kind of like the number line, -1, -2, -3. You keep going back. There's no beginning. Okay, so the 4 attributes. 1, craving accumulates the cause of dukkha. But continually longing for beautiful objects to see, hear, smell, taste, touch, and think about, craving spurs a frantic search to distract the mind, numb ourselves from the world, and medicate our pain. In this way, we never really deal with the heart of our problems. Boy, isn't this American society? All society. Yeah. Medicate our pain, distract ourselves from the world. Do something. Usually, we think our suffering is due to not getting what we want. In fact, it is due to craving. Okay, not getting what we want isn't really the source of the problem. It's the craving that's fixated on it that is the problem. Craving causes dissatisfaction. Not seeing that the problem is within us, we are like a dog with fleas. Unable to get comfortable in one place, the dog moves to another place thinking there are no fleas there. Isn't this us? Until we free our minds from craving, misery will follow us around. A mind free of craving is a peaceful mind, a satisfied mind. What Lama used to say is, good enough, dear. That's the mind free from craving. Then 2, craving is a constant source of dukkha. So craving doesn't stop when we get what we want. See, this is what we think. We're so unsatisfied when craving is in the mind. When we get what we want, then the craving temporarily decreases. So we think, oh, now I feel so much better. I've got what I want. Okay? But it's like drinking salt water. The more we get what we crave, the more we crave. We get something new, and after enjoying it a short time, are once again bored, dissatisfied, and craving something else. Meanwhile, each moment of craving creates more latencies of craving, which predispose us to crave in the future. So look at the results of craving. Constant dissatisfaction, okay, creating negative karma that produces more rebirths, and perpetuating itself by putting more latencies on the mind, by strengthening the seed of the craving that's there already. Craving is bad news, isn't it? Then 3, craving brings bondage and unites us with dukkha. Never wanting to separate from the people, possessions, places, ideas, entertainment, and accolades we seek, craving unites us with dukkha. So we never want to separate from these things. As a result, we get united with dukkha. It makes us want to associate with the very things that incite our longing and feelings of insufficiency. Yeah, the craving wants us to be near the things that incite more craving and that make us feel like we're insufficient. Yeah, you get a new job. Wow, I got the new job. Then, am I able to do it right? What kind of reviews am I going to get? Will I fit in with the office? You know, again, dukkha starts. Okay. Yeah, and it brings that craving, brings that whole feeling of insufficiency, isn't it? You know, I crave to be the best. I crave to perform well, but I'm terrified I won't. Yeah. I don't really have the qualities to do this job. This person says they care about me, but if they really knew what I like, what I'm like, they wouldn't. Yeah? Always feeling insufficient. Craving recognition, we compete with others. Oh, don't we? Yeah, recognize me. Here I am. I'm the best. So we compete. If we prove ourselves better, instead of feeling relaxed and secure, we fear falling from that status and suffer from the stress of maintaining our position. If the other person comes out on top, we suffer from envy. Craving makes it so there is no peace in any situation. Yeah? I mean, and this is, we've got to do some serious meditation on this. Yeah? Because when we crave, we're dissatisfied. We get what we want. Yeah? It unites us with the very thing that creates more longing and creates the feelings of being insufficiency. Yeah. Then, and so we're competing with others, right? If we get more than they get, then we're all puffed up, but we still feel insecure because we might lose what we got. And people might find out we didn't really deserve it in the first place and that we did all sorts of nasty things to get it. Yeah. If others come out on top, then we burn with envy. How come they got it and I didn't? It's not fair. Yeah. If we get the same thing somebody else got, I'm so disappointed in myself. I should have done better. I know I could be better than that idiot. Yeah? And so all of that is fueled by craving. So there's never really a moment's peace in our mind, is there? So 4, craving is an obstacle and impediment to freedom from dukkha. Craving prevents us from separating from the things we are attached to. Yeah, so those things that we're attached to that create more longing and more dissatisfaction and more fear and anxiety of losing, craving prevents us from separating from those things. Because they look so good, why should we separate from them? Okay. Looking deeply at our own experience, we see that even when we fulfill our desires, our mind is not at peace. It is riddled with fear of losing what we like. In this way, craving prevents us having a peaceful mind and impedes us from practicing Dhamma, the one source of true peace. Okay? So while craving is taken as the prime example of the origin of dukkha in both the Pali and Sanskrit traditions, other impediments exist as well. The Pali tradition and the Sanskrit Abhidharmakosa discuss the 10 fetters, which are mental factors binding us to samsara and impeding the attainment of liberation. So we talked about these before in terms of the 4 types of Aryas and what they've overcome. So the 5 lower fetters are views of personal identity, deluded doubt, view of rules and practices, sensual desire, and malice. Okay, so we've talked about those before. The 5 higher fetters are desire for existence in the material realm, desire for existence in the immaterial realm, so we talked about those today, conceit, restlessness, the mind that is always looking for something new, that is excited with the possibility of getting something, that maybe goes to worry and anxiety, and ignorance, which we've discussed. Okay, so those are the 10 fetters talked about in both traditions. The Pali tradition and the Abhidharmakosa also outline 3 pollutants, deeply rooted primordial defilements that have bound us to samsara without respite. So the pollutants of sensuality, so here we're coming back to attachment, sensual desire, same thing again, except here, these ones that we go through here, the pollutants, they overlap with the things that are the fetters and the 6 root afflictions. But here, the names of them overlap. But here they're discussed as deeply rooted primordial defilements. As fetters, they're discussed as things that impede gaining the Arya state. So these are the same kinds of mental factors, but looked at from slightly different way, and also the level or way that they function is described in different ways. But there's the basic thing about them is very similar. Okay, so pollutants of sensuality, pollutant of existence, grasping for existence in the desire realm, material realm, immaterial realm. And the pollutant of ignorance. Again, our friend. The Pali Abhidhamma literature adds a 4th, the pollutant of views. Okay? So, in the Sanskrit tradition, we'll get to that, when it describes the 6 root afflictions, the last one is afflicted views, and there's 5 kinds of afflicted views. The view of a personal identity, the view of eternalism and nihilism, the view considering that those views are the best ones, the view of rules and practices, and wrong views. Okay? So that would all be incorporated here in the pollutant of views. Pali scriptures contain a list of afflictions, okay, and auxiliary afflictions that are offshoots of the root afflictions. There are many overlaps with the list of these two in the Sanskrit tradition. Okay? So the Sanskrit tradition usually speaks of the chief impediments to liberation as the 6 afflictions. Yeah? Attachment to sensuality, again. Anger, that matches up with hostility, malice. Views, okay, so afflictive views. Doubt, conceit, and ignorance. Okay, with the addition of the desire for existence, which could be put into the one of attachment. But if you add it on as another one, this corresponds to the list of underlying tendencies in the Pali tradition, where they are seen as latent tendencies that enable afflictions to become manifest. So it's just comparing the list of afflictions in the Sanskrit tradition with the list of underlying tendencies in the Pali tradition, where you have those same 6 plus the desire for existence. Okay, Pali commentaries clarify that the fetas and other defilements exist on 3 levels. Okay, as underlying tendencies. So here we're going into the different underlying tendencies. You can see how they're spoken of, these same afflictions spoken of according to different functions or different levels. Okay, as underlying tendencies, they are latent potentials in the mind, what we would call the seeds of the afflictions. Okay, when manifest, they actively enslave the mind as motivating forces. So that would be a state of mind with the mental factor of intention plus some affliction with it, producing an afflicted intention. Yeah, so still on the level of mind. Then 3, they lead to non-virtuous physical and verbal actions. Okay, so that's the next one. Oh, I'm sorry, I read this incorrectly. The first one is okay, let's start over. Okay. As underlying tendencies, they're the latent potentials in the mind, what we would call seeds of the afflictions. When manifest, they actively enslave the mind. So we have a manifest affliction that we haven't acted on yet. Okay, but our mind is burning. And then 3rd, as motivating forces, this is when they team up with the mental factor of intention and lead to non-virtuous physical and verbal actions. Okay, so that's the 3rd level. When afflictions are at the level of underlying tendencies and our mind is relatively calm, we may delude ourselves into thinking we no longer have a problem with a particular affliction. Okay? Our mindfulness relaxes, and soon a full-blown affliction overwhelms our mind. Unable to suppress this manifest affliction, it spills over, becoming a motivating force to speak or act in a harmful manner. Okay? So sometimes we may work very hard in our meditation, with a certain affliction that we've been suffering from, and we may make some progress, and so it doesn't come up so much. And then we get a little bit complacent. Yeah, like, I've conquered that one. That one's not going to bother me anymore. Okay, so it's at the level of the underlying tendency. We get complacent. It's not going to bother me anymore. As soon as you get that kind of haughtiness, guaranteed, reality is going to smack you in the face. And out of left field is going to come whatever it is that you thought you had overcome. And woof, there's your manifest affliction before. And it's so strong that you act it out. Okay? So that's why I tell people, when you're making progress in your practice, never say to yourself until you are an Arya, oh, that affliction is not going to disturb me anymore. Yeah, because boy, the afflictions are tenacious. And, you can look around sometimes and, you can see somebody who seems to be doing very well in their practice, and then all of a sudden they're doing something and we're scratching our head and saying, wait a minute, how come they're doing this so well in their practice, and now they made this ridiculous decision that's totally taking them away from what they were saying was important to them. Yeah? Well, that's because of this, We weren't on the lookout for the underlying tendencies, the seed of the affliction when it was manifested, and our antidote wasn't that strong. Or our antidote was strong as long as we weren't near the object of attachment. As soon as we're near the object of attachment or the object of anger, our antidote is piddling, in comparison. It can't match up. Mm-hmm. So that's why when you ordain, you should make strong prayers to remain ordained in this and all future lifetimes, and to keep the precepts purely and not give it back. Yeah. Then the 4 attributes of true cessation. Okay. So we got through the 2 we have to abandon. Now we're getting to the 2 that we're going to generate. Okay, so Nibbana is the true cessation of dukkha and its origins. It is perceived by the 4 types of Aryas, the stream enterers, once-returner, non-returner, and arhat, who experience the paths and fruits. So the paths are the approacher state, the fruit is the resultant state, of each of the 4. So first, true cessation is freedom from dukkha. Hooray! Yeah. Stream enterers enjoy the peace of freedom from the view of a personal identity, deluded doubt, the view of rules and practices, and other wrong views. Yeah, wouldn't it be nice to be free of those? While not free from any new defilements, once-returners have reduced their sensual desire and malice. Also sounds good. Non-returners are free from the 5 lower fetters, and arhats are free of all fetters, defilements, and pollutants. So this is said from the viewpoint of attaining liberation, not from the viewpoint of Buddhahood. Arhats first attain Nibbana with remainder, in which the 5 polluted aggregates received at birth remain. But when they die and those aggregates are forever forsaken, Nibbana without remainder is attained. Okay? So, when you've considered, going through samsara again and again and again from beginningless time, arhatship sounds fantastic, doesn't it? You're free of all of this. Yeah. As Mahayana practitioners, we want to also degenerate the samvega, the urgency, and renunciation, but not only in respect to our own dukkha and our own true origins, but with respect to the dukkha and true origins of all sentient beings. Okay? And so that propels us into the bodhisattva vehicle. Okay? But definitely we have to meditate on those same qualities of dukkha and true origins. It's just we broaden the scope from just ourselves to all sentient beings. Okay? Very important. It's a breach, it's a transgression of a root bodhisattva precept if you say, oh, I don't need to meditate on all of that. I just meditate on the Mahayana teachings and bodhicitta. I don't need to meditate on all this stuff about true dukkha and true origins. Yeah, it's a very, very pernicious, wrong view. Okay, the second quality of true cessation. True cessation is secluded from disturbance. Okay, so next time you get in a bad mood, stop bugging me! You're disturbing me! Just think, but true cessation is the real freedom from disturbance. Yeah. Not locking myself, slamming the door and locking myself in the room and not coming out. Okay? Unlike ordinary beings who are plagued by defilements and whose rebirths fluctuate from the hells to the immaterial realm, the four Aryas are free from these disturbances. Their minds become progressively more peaceful until liberation is attained. Wouldn't it be nice to have a peaceful mind? Wouldn't it be nice to have a mind that you could trust? Yeah? Because right now we can't really trust our minds very much. You know, we're near an object of affliction and we go nuts. Yeah? Our own mind is so unpredictable. So wouldn't it be nice to have true cessations where we could trust our mind? Like, okay, all the beautiful things can come. I'm still going to be calm. People can call me whatever names they want. They can treat me however they want to treat me. I'm still going to be okay. Wouldn't that be nice? True cessation is the deathless. Wouldn't that be nice, not having to die? Okay? True cessations do not fade or disappear, even though the four Aryas still have the polluted aggregates received at birth. This is when they're still in the approacher stage. Still before they're an arhat who passes away and abandons the body. While stream enterers, once returners, and non-returners may die and be reborn, their true cessations are never lost and continue on. So that's why, attaining that level of stream enterer is so emphasized, because once you have that, you have realizations you can't lose. Nibbana is unoriginated and uncreated, free from the vagaries, vagaries of constant rebirth and death. Yeah, so with nirvana, you're no longer reborn, you no longer have to go through aging, sickness, and death under the influence of afflictions and karma. Very nice. That's true relaxation. Yeah. They don't have true cessations at a spa. They don't have true cessations on a cruise ship. Okay? True cessations is real relaxation. True cessation is unconditioned. Conditioned and impermanent or unsatisfactory samsaric aggregates lead to constant insecurity and fear. Completely free from this conditioning, true cessations are genuine peace. They never go out of existence. They never change. The true cessations of the four Aryas never decline, decay, or cease. They do not need to be generated anew each day or in each meditation session. So here we really see that freedom from afflictions and karma is real peace. Yeah, it's real peace. Then the four attributes of true paths. The Noble Eightfold Path is the true path, a mind directly realizing Nibbana that brings about all cessations of dukkha and its causes. Now there it sounds like Nibbana in the Prasangika view would be emptiness, doesn't it? Yeah, in terms of the function, it brings about all cessations of dukkha and its causes. Yeah, and Nibbana is a permanent reality, so is emptiness. Yeah. But if you ask somebody from the Pali tradition, is Nibbana emptiness? And you describe emptiness according to the Prasangika view, I don't know what they'd say. Probably no, because their view of selflessness is different than the view, Okay. Okay. Insight wisdom is generated by meditating on the subtle impermanence of the aggregates, and thereby knowing that the aggregates are unreliable and unsatisfactory. Because the aggregates arise and pass away each moment, they cannot be an independent self, because an independent self does not arise and pass away each moment. This liberating insight wisdom that sees the three characteristics, impermanence, dukkha, and not self, understands the five aggregates, or another way to explain the five aggregates, the 6 sources, 18 elements, and so forth, as characterized by the three characteristics. Okay? Thus, the direct objects of... Okay, so here we have this insight wisdom that's generated from meditating. You start with impermanence. The impermanence, and remember, once you realize impermanence, you've realized dukkha. Yeah, because dukkha, everything that's transient, is, unsatisfactory by nature. Impermanent, once you've realized that, you've also seen that none of the aggregates can be an independent self, because the aggregates rise and pass away. So you've realized selflessness. Yeah. So in the Pali tradition, you realize these three simultaneously, in the fullest, when you've realized them fully. Okay, and you can see how the three characteristics fit together. They aren't three unrelated kind of things. They fit together. Okay. So it sees the five aggregates, 6 sources, 18, elements, and so forth, as impermanent, nature of suffering, and not self. Okay, it sees them that way. Yeah. Thus, the direct object of insight is the aggregates, sense sources, and so forth. That's what is being seen, the direct object. And they are apprehended in terms of the three characteristics. Yeah. So the direct object is the aggregates, and they're apprehended as having the three characteristics. So one in the Sanskrit tradition, they describe that as the aggregates are the explicit object and selflessness is the implicit object. It would be interesting to ask somebody from the Pali tradition if that's how they would describe it too. Yeah. But you can certainly see how the Sanskrit tradition got that description, from this description. Okay. As this insight wisdom deepens, a breakthrough to the supramundane occurs, and path wisdom, which takes nibbana as its object, arises. So here you can see clearly in the Pali tradition, the realization of selflessness is different from the realization of nibbana. Yeah, the realization of the three characteristics is done by insight wisdom, which is still a mundane wisdom because it's focused on polluted objects like the aggregates. Yeah, the path wisdom, which takes nibbana as its object, is a supramundane wisdom because it focuses on nibbana, which has nothing to do with afflictions and karma. Okay? So here you can see there's a difference in the layout of the path. Yeah, because in the Sanskrit tradition, when you realize the selflessness of persons and phenomena, okay, well, I'm talking here about the, I have to go to the Prasangika view again, because it's different in Chitta Madhya and it's different in Svatantrika Madhyamaka. But from the Prasangika view, when you realize the selflessness, it's the realization of the emptiness of both persons and phenomena, meaning the aggregates. Okay, and that is a transcendental wisdom. Okay, so here, it's different. The path realizing, or the mind realizing selflessness in the Pali tradition is not a transcendental wisdom. It's an insight wisdom, but it's focused on the aggregates which are polluted, so it's not transcendental. And so there's a difference between realizing selflessness and realizing nibbana. Yeah. Whereas in the Prasangika, realizing selflessness, automatically you get a type of true cessation. Yeah. And that true cessation is an emptiness of the mind that is purified of that portion of the afflictions. Okay. So each of the 8 path factors in the Noble Eightfold Path, so right view, intention, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and concentration, has a mundane and a supramundane aspect. The mundane aspect is together with the pollutants and is practiced by those who are not yet Aryas. Okay? It is meritorious and leads to a fortunate rebirth. Possessed by Aryas, supramundane path factors eradicate different levels of fetters and lead to liberation. The path is gradual, and the mundane path factors are cultivated first. When they mature, and when serenity and insight are strong, the 8 supramundane path factors manifest together during a state of samadhi focused on the unconditioned nibbana. Okay? So you cultivate the path factors, the Eightfold Noble Path, in the mundane path factors by practicing these in your daily life. Yeah. When those have reached a certain level, when your serenity and insight have reached a certain level, then there's that breakthrough to seeing nibbana. And at that time, then you have the supramundane path factors, the actual Noble Eightfold Path. Okay? So the Buddha, and usually in the Sanskrit tradition, according to both Vasubandhu and Asanga, the Noble Eightfold Path is explained as the supramundane path. Yeah. But of course, His Holiness says, I really like the way the Pali tradition describes it as something you can practice now too. You know, that makes a lot of sense. So, and it does, and so practicing it now is definitely helpful. Okay, so the Buddha explains each path factor as well as its opposite in the Mahakattarisaka Sutta. Okay, so I think we'll stop here. Time's up. And then we'll continue this afternoon with the Noble Eightfold Path. Yeah?
So this reminded me, or seeming like a parallel to what we were talking about in the discussion after Jeffrey's teaching yesterday, of the direct realization of emptiness having emptiness as its object, but an inferential realization having the actual object.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. No, emptiness is still the object of an inferential realization of emptiness. It is. It's the object. Yeah. They just say that they use this term observed object for the basis of the emptiness. But that was the whole discussion, that, you know, there's a debate whether that object appears or not. Yeah. I don't see how it can possibly appear. Yeah. I'm on the side if it doesn't appear. Because your main object is emptiness. Your main object is not the table.
But if it was what you were observing, then you would be seeing it directly.
No, not necessarily. Yeah, because when you're thinking about what your room looks like, yeah, you're apprehending your room, but not directly. It's through a conceptual appearance. Okay? So apprehend does not mean directly perceive. It just means know.